Today, I'm joined by the amazing Preeti Inchody. Preeti is a mergers and acquisition advisor based in Australia, working with Australian and global clients. Preeti has originated and executed deals for blue chip clients across consumer, industrial, and technology sectors, working with founders and global sponsors. Arriving in Australia from India in 2012 with limited contacts, she built trusted networks through resilience and unwavering focus on exceptional client outcomes. She's also the co-deputy chair of Women for Change, supporting underprivileged women's access to education. I'm very lucky to have this powerhouse in my circle. Welcome, Preeti.
Thank you so much, Julie, and thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast. As you know, I love your episodes, so thank you.
Thank you. And this is your second time on Leading You.
Yes, I'm honored.
Yes. So I'm so grateful that you have chosen, this platform to speak about something that was really quite life-changing for you last year. So can you take us back to the moment your life was thrown into disarray? What actually happened last year?
So, in April of 2025, I was having a staycation with my family in Port Macquarie in regional New South Wales. My husband and my son were on holiday, but I continued to work nonstop. And I was doing a mundane daily task, going down to put laundry, and I slipped on a ramp and fell. So mundane, so innocuous.
Yeah.
After I fell, I could not stand up. And I knew this was not like any other fall I had to date. I knew in my gut that this was very serious. I called my husband. We went to the emergency. Everyone who looked at my scans and x-rays said, how is this possible from just a normal fall? Are you sure? And I was like, yes, I am very sure. They said I needed to have surgery, probably multiple surgeries, and I could see on their face that they were not trying to scare me, but I could see that they were trying to compose themselves as they spoke to me.
Yeah.
So my husband put me in the car. We drove back to Sydney. We waited in a Sydney hospital emergency room for until midnight. And again, the visiting ortho who looked at my scan said, "You have to see so and so doctor, who's a surgeon, who's a very renowned surgeon in Australia on Monday morning." And I never forget the first meeting I had with my surgeon. He looked at it. He's a very experienced foot-related surgeon. So I had broken
Mm.
my foot. I had multiple fractures on four out of my five fingers, my five toes on the foot, and I had dislocation. And he looked at me and he said, "This is going to take multiple surgeries. You may not be able to get back to normal walking for 12 to 18 months. We will figure it out, but you have to be prepared that, for a lot of things which may be uncomfortable." I still remember that moment because my husband had to actually go out of the room and get a drink of water because we just had been on holiday and I had just gone to the laundry, and here I was. In that moment, I was like braced for impact. So I was immediately in a mindset that I have to accept it. And
Mm.
I had to change my mindset from let this go away, let this be something small, to I have to accept it. And from that moment, from when I spoke to the surgeon until I had the surgery, I spoke to a lot of people, including yourself, Julie, because I was just grappling with acceptance. I just wanted to accept it, and I found the acceptance really hard. While I say the story, I must also reiterate that even so, this was a shock to my system. I kept reminding myself that this is not something life threatening, it's a
Mm.
curveball. And so it may take months, it may take years, but it's going to be okay. So that was like a tape I was running at the back of my head, which was hard because it's partly like, okay, I'm grateful that this is not life threatening, but I have to deal with this. I can't wish it away, and I have to accept it. Um, so, yeah, that was the incident. And I've
Yeah.
had multiple surgeries since.
It's just like you say, that acceptance part can be really hard. And, you like you did an amazing job. Like you're very good at everything you do, pretty, including breaking your foot, all of your toes, pretty
Yes,
much. So
yes, yes.
I totally understand from being in a similar situation where you're told that, you can't walk,
Mm,
you're not mobile
mm,
for a long period of time, and your whole world's thrown into disarray, and it's like, I don't want this to be happening. But you're someone who is very used to being in control. Like you said, you were
yes,
working when you were on holidays nonstop.
yes,
You're
yes.
always in motion, always in leadership mode.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part about being forced to stop?
I think there were two things which were very hard. First was depending on people. So, not only did I break my left foot, and the injury I had is what usually sports people have. It's called a Liz Frank injury, but I had also fractured my other foot. So, I couldn't walk at all. Like, I could barely walk. There were days I just sat on my bed. So even to go to the bathroom, I had to wait for my husband to be free from his calls or ask him when he could take me to the bathroom. So having to depend on someone to do something that basic was hard in the beginning.
Mm,
And while I was in the hospital, I'm so grateful to all the nurses, surgeons, and everyone who attended me. But there was one attendant who actually gave me a bath. I'm in my 40s. That was very humbling, and I couldn't be more grateful because I did want to have a shower, and I even used a bedpan. So I had to do what I
yeah.
had to do, and so in that moment, I had so much respect for the health workers around me, my family, but being dependent on someone for basic things was extremely humbling. So that was the first part
Mm,
of not being in control because you're not even
yeah.
in control of basic things. The second thing I would say is I grew up a very A grade student, and I am hardworking, and my response to lot of challenges at work or in life has been to outwork the problem through creativity, s- ingenuity, sometimes just sheer effort. And in this case, I I couldn't fasten the solution. I couldn't fasten the healing. I described the feeling to my friends that I am getting better 1% every day, and it's like
Mm,
watching paint dry. So I can't speeden up the process, or I can't outwork this situation. Even now, as we are doing this podcast, I still can't run. I am not 100% at walking. If you see me walk fast, I'm probably limping a little bit. So I it forced me to kind of give up control and trust in God, universe, whatever you may want to call that. I was forced to do that because
mm,
if I couldn't trust, then I had to give up hope. So I had to trust in something greater than the skills or the efforts inside of me. And this
mm,
was a good reminder because I'm in my 40s and I'm very aware of identities. Like people, I believe I'm a hardworking person, I can do a good job. And sometimes you can do everything, but you have to trust something greater than you. And I don't think there could be a bigger lesson in accepting that. So that was really hard. And then the third
mm.
part, as I said to you on the side, just that accepting the situation initially was really hard, because to move forward, you have to accept it. So, yes,
Yeah.
it was hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And so your routine was like thrown up in the air,
Yeah,
work wise,
yeah,
personally as well.
yeah,
So, what did that do to you, like mentally, like, from a
yeah,
mental health perspective and also emotionally?
yeah. I tried to be positive the best I could. So, for some reason, the minute the surgeon told me this is going to take a long time, I called my coach, Megan Jaworski. She's based in Melbourne. I reached out to a few of my closest friends, and I reached out to you, Julie, because I knew you had been through your cancer journey. And
Mm,
I was just looking to find ways how people had accepted the situation, because I wanted to accept it, but I really struggled to accept it. So I leaned a lot on the support system around me to just reframe in my mind. It seems very intellectual, but it works for me. I wanted
yeah.
to reframe the situation in my head. But the most powerful advice that was given to me actually came from you, Julie, because we talk about routines. When I called you, I remembered you had cancer. I remembered you had melanoma. For some reason, I did not remember it was at the bottom of your foot, and you had a similar walking issue. So
Mm,
I didn't call you knowingly that you had a similar issue. I just knew you had been through a hard situation. And you said something to me which has been so instrumental in my recovery, because you said you cannot wait for your old routine to return. You have to find a new routine.
mm,
That was very, very important, because, this is, we are months into this recovery journey. I haven't gotten back to my old routine. I can't hop, skip, and jump and run around. I'm a very active person. My day to day is very, like, you'd hardly find me sitting in one place. Like, I'm very on my feet. And if I had waited all these months to get back to how it was pre accident, I would just lose a lot of hope. So I took your advice to heart, that I wanted to find what is the new routine. So at every stage in my recovery, I've kind of said, what is my routine now? What can I do now? What does morning look like? What is, at the initial stages of my recovery, I would wait for family members to go about their business, like my son leaves for school, my husband goes to work, and then I'd try to hobble out of bed so I'm not. So I had different routines at different stages of my recovery. I started going back into the office. So I fell in April, and I started going back mid August, I think. So then I had a different routine. Again, I couldn't balance my foot well, so I couldn't get into the bus. So I tried to accept and adapt to different routines. But having said that,
mm,
there were moments, like I remember on my birthday, my family called me from India. I just burst out crying because you do everything that you possibly humanly can, but at some points you just want to do the things that you could do before, and you have to accept that you can't do them now. As you know, I love walking. I was a course trekker. I've done 50
yeah.
kilometers, and walking is the way I cleared my head. Like, walking is still my favorite, and it's one of my goals to get back to be able to walk. Like, right now I'm probably at 1 kilometer with some pain. Um, and that was hard, to lose my form of exercise or my tool to clear my head. So what is now the new thing I can do, if it's not walking? I had
Mm,
to figure that out. I had to be curious. I had to be hopeful, and I just had to be a good student of life, I guess. I just had to say, this is it, and what can I do best?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I love that. What you say is really important, I think, for people who are going through their own seasons, of challenge, of change, maybe an accident, that you focus on what you can do now in this moment, on this day,
yeah,
that can be really empowering rather than wishing and hoping and, that you can walk the coast track, they can be
Yeah.
really disempowering in that moment when you cannot
Yeah.
do it. So
Yeah.
it's that acceptance and, as you say, reframing it and
Yeah.
focusing on what you can do now, which is, of course,
Yeah.
there's a lot you can do now.
Yeah.
And still, there is a lot that you
Yeah.
can do. So, you
Yeah.
know, um, how has this experience changed the way that you lead, both at work and at home?
Um, at home has been great because my 12-year-old just took up a lot more chores at home. And I think my accident made him more responsible. So at home, I couldn't be happier. I was so grateful to my husband because he worked from home continuously for 3.5 months, and that wasn't easy. So I was very grateful for the support I had at home. At work, it was interesting because I always try to show up with a problem and a solution.
Mm.
So in this particular instance, I couldn't say to my team, I will do the meetings in 1 month or I will do it in 4 months. I just had to say, I will indefinitely do the meetings online. I'm going to have to rely on you. So I had to show up not knowing the answer, and I had to empower them more to make
Mm.
decisions. Like if I'm at the hospital that day and there was a critical meeting, they could take the call, and I had to trust that we had worked together for so long and that would be totally fine. So I think it changed the way I lead because it actually showed me that my team can do a lot more than I gave them credit for. And I should actually spend my time on the business, building the business, rather than just managing and reviewing their work. So,
Mm.
in hindsight, would I have done that without the accident? Maybe. I intellectually knew I had to do that, but I think this experience has shown me that I need to lean on them more, and because that is their growth path, and
Mm.
for the business to grow, that's the right thing to do. So there was something that positive that came out of it, but it was very uncomfortable in the moment, especially
Mm.
with clients. Sometimes I would turn up in deal negotiations, and you know I would not be at my prettiest self because I've been sitting on this chair for 8 weeks, and I had to say, this is in my head, I had to say to myself, you know what, this is my best today. I can't
Mm.
keep giving explanations to everybody and anybody on the hundreds of calls that I did. So this is the best version of me, and we're just going to go. Uh, the usual me, or the post COVID me or pre COVID me would have been petrified to turn up on some
Mm.
of those calls like that. But some days I just couldn't. I just had to turn up. That was my best. And
Mm.
it's not like something had happened to my mental capacity, right? So I was still
Right.
I was able to execute the deals because every my work, fortunately, is a mental job. It's not a job which requires my physical capability. So I had to trust that uh, this is my best version of me today, and the client and my team is still getting a best version of me. I just It's just a different version of how I'm showing up.
Yeah, I love that. So there's a real theme coming through this in terms of you leaning in to
Yeah,
the support of your family and also leaning in to the capability of your team, which no doubt,
yeah,
you've worked with them to grow them and
yeah,
trusting and empowering them to
yeah,
do what, you have, as a leader, work with them
yeah,
to do is so
yeah,
incredibly empowering for them. So, and as you
yes,
say, just showing up as best you can on the day it just had to be how it
yeah,
was. So,
yeah.
Pretty, what do you think is a surprising gift that came out of this slower season for you that you would have never experienced otherwise?
Um, I'm a a feeling person. So when I am in a room or meet a person, I have a pretty good gut intuition. I don't run away with my gut intuition, so I always give people the benefit of the doubt, but I've always had that. In a very busy season of my life, I can tend to override that, right? But because I was forced to literally sit on this chair for a period of 2 to 3 months, I was able to sit back and observe the incongruence between what someone would say and what they were doing, whether it was on a deal, whether it was in friendships. And I was able to get back to myself in that sense because I always knew that actions speak louder than words. You know, people
Mm.
say something and they do something. And I think I got back to myself in terms of, just sitting back because I had to literally sit back and
Mhm.
observe what was happening in a room, in a situation with my social circles and go, okay, uh, X person says so, but they do so. And I'm going to go back to trust more what they're doing rather than what they're saying. And sometimes when you're in a very busy season of your life, it's easy to miss that, right? Because
Yeah.
you're so much in that routine. Someone sent you
Mm.
an email and then you're actioning that and then you're on to the next checklist that you miss that bigger picture and the innate capability that you have to read a situation or a room. So I think I got back in touch with that for myself. The second thing is I want to say I became a bit bolder with the risks I'm willing to take to grow my business or grow my own personal profile. Um, as you know, my journey in Australia has been now 14, 15 years, and I have worked hard to build my reputation in this industry. And I've always, I was in a season where I was trying to do the best, get the best outcome, prove myself. And it just made me stop and go, I have actually achieved a lot, and I'm going to move from proving to doing what is right by the client, me, my business. And that required a bold reframe in my own head. Like, no one's asked me to do that. That required a bold reframe for me mentally. And it snapped out this nervous energy I had. So, I grew up as an A grade student. I had a lot of validation at school. I won all the awards, and I always had this nervous energy. And people would say, "Oh, that's great because that means you care and you're doing a great job." But really, I just had this low grade anxiety, and this was not a great way to live or experience life or be present with my family. So I think the accident kind of snapped me out of it. So it doesn't mean that difficult situations or challenges will not present, but I think I have a broader sense of perspective right now. That is, if I have my health, I have everything. I have come so far. I can rebuild whatever I need to. I have my health. And so the first time in my life, my work and my life were always like this. And sometimes even the, work higher above myself.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I had to put myself or my health here and work probably a close second, but it was still up there because if I couldn't walk for 2 years, well, then my work would suffer anyway. So I had to put myself up. And I think that has been a good reframe from a courage perspective,
Mm.
and being bolder in how I approach certain situations, holding my boundaries, and just doing the right thing by the business as well as myself and the clients.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I like that. And so, you mentioned that you did so much deep thinking while you were just sitting there.
yeah.
And hospital can tend to make you do that because there's not a whole lot you can do when you cannot move. You just think and reflect. So, do you feel like I believe boundaries are so important, and that's something that I certainly changed once I got diagnosed. And of course, I totally agree with you. Health is the number one. And if you have your health, you have everything else. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
Um, so do you feel as though that you're much better at upholding your boundaries now to make sure that you do look after you?
Yes, it still takes practice because it's an
Yeah.
uncomfortable feeling to put a boundary and enforce it. But I have started doing that better. For
Yeah.
example, I do a lot of calls with the US and the UK because the buyers are overseas for many of the companies that I'm selling. So usually I'm calls at 7 a.m. in the morning, 7 p.m. at night, sometimes at 10 p.m. So my day just is like stretches. And what I would never say to someone that I can't do that time. I would just make it work, right? I would just rearrange my day around it and make it work. If I was at an event, literally, I would step out and take the phone call and go back. Like that was my operating style, which is not a healthy way to be because I'm not
Mm,
present at those places that I am. So
mm,
it still takes practice. I wouldn't say that it's overnight gone from 0 to 100, but that is a
yeah.
better way for me to be, for myself, my family, my team, my clients, and the business. That I
Yeah.
know and I firmly believe. And so I'm trying to enforce that 1% every day. That doesn't mean I'm less committed or less flexible. I'm still going to do everything that I can. But this was not a healthy way to live as a leader. And it was not a good example to set for my team, you know?
Yeah.
So I had to think about that. What is the example that I'm setting for my team here?
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
I love that. So pretty, we're in January. For the leaders, the women who, in particular, I think, who feel like they can't slow down, who feel like they have to be, busy and rushing all the time, and they can't stop unless the world forces them to. What would you say to them right now?
Life has a way of bringing you back to the lessons that you don't learn. That is something I've had to learn the hard way. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is that different seasons bring on different kinds of stress or fullness into our lives. So, on reflection, when I first came to Australia, my son was very little. I went back to work when he was a baby, and I had a very demanding job, and I had the job of keeping a little human alive with no family around me, and that season was very busy. And what I
Mm,
always said to myself is, oh, once my son grows up, it's going to be better. I'm going to have better balance. I'm going to do other things. But you know what happened, Julie, is that season passed. My son is 12 now. I just filled that time with other things. So it became a more
crazy.
operating mode for me, right?
Yes.
I kept saying that, okay, when this changes, I will have more time. No, but that became my normal state of being, right? And you've written a book about this, but a lot of people get validation from saying, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. It doesn't necessarily translate to moving forward, though. You can be
Yeah.
busy and just stationary in one place. So, all I'd say is, regardless of the season in your life, you can always start and do small things to take back some time for yourself. So, some things I have been doing, not checking my phone for the first half an hour after I wake up.
Yeah.
That's been a game changer for me because
Yeah.
I always have overnight emails. And if I previously, I used to get up, look at my email, and then even before I went to have my coffee, I'd be just on my phone. And that was
Mm,
incredibly, uh, you know, not helpful to me. That was one. Second thing I'd say is you can block your calendar for half an hour, 15 minutes, whatever it is, to do something which helps you just be a bit more present and better, whether it's exercise, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's connecting with an old contact or a friend or a mentor. You can actually diarize that.
mm,
Um, you can you can take small steps to bring balance back into your life, because it's
Mm,
very hard to go from 0 to 360 on anything. But I just want people who are in whatever season that they go, once this is done, I'm going to be, no, actually, it just becomes your state of being. And you go on to the
yeah.
next season and find other things to incredibly fill your life with. And you're in this constant state of burnout. So, what are the small things that you can do? Like, I work with my coach to stop working on the weekends. It sounds so silly. Now I work when I have to, but otherwise I don't. But for
Mm,
years, I would just like nonstop, right? Like Saturday, okay, a couple of hours, watching cricket for my son, that's fine. I'd take the computer. Like it was so unhealthy what I was doing. So
yeah.
you can do small things to bring some sense of balance back into your life without waiting for the seasons to pass, because the seasons may pass and you may find yourself in the same place again. And lastly, and most importantly, I firmly believe that life will bring you back to the same lesson if you don't learn it. And that's very true for me. When I fell and I called my friend after the accident back home in India, I said, literally, there's nothing else that could have forced me to stop. Like, literally, the universe said, you know what? You are not going to walk for a few months. And
Yeah.
that's forced me to stop.
Yeah.
Because I think the universe is like, I am tired of sending her subtle hints. So let's just, this is a big stop. So yeah,
This is a
those are
big bang.
my thoughts. Yeah, it's a big bang. So those are my thoughts on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great, Pretty, and such a great point to leave us on because, as you say, we can get so used to, that speed, that chaos, that franticness just being our operating rhythm. We get used to it, it's our normal. And at some point in time, whether it's burnout, whether it's a serious health issue, whether you break your foot, like something will bring you back because that is not how we're built to operate as humans. So, thank you so much for sharing your insights from very unfortunate incident for you. And you've shared that for the benefit of our listeners. So,
Yes.
thank you so much for leading your way through it.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast, Julie. I just wanted to say thank you. Your podcasts resonate with me a lot. So it's an honor to be on your podcast. And I hope your listeners get some benefit out of my learnings from this incident.
Without a doubt. Thanks, Preeti.
Thank you, Julie.